Service Watch provides a number of ways to look at impact analysis. That is, how does an issue or a problem, or even a potential problem, affect a particular line of business? This screen, the dashboard, shows those lines of businesses, shows the business services, color-coded, of course, based on the severity of events coming in on the bottom. One other way that you can immediately judge the relative importance of these business services is by their size. So, for example, U.S. funds transfer at a priority 5 carries more importance than U.S. tax statements at priority 1. And if you're assigning work to technicians, you would assign technicians to work on the larger, preferably the larger red ones, before you assigned work on the physically smaller services in this dashboard. Now let's look at how we would find out what the problem is for a particular business service. For example, take U.S. e-payments. I can click on that and drill down and filter out all but the one alarm that's causing an issue with that service. In fact, I can see which server is causing the problem, SQL 01, and if I'm the technician assigned to go work this case, I might think to myself, I've seen this server before. I'm pretty sure it affects other business services as well, but I just can't remember what they are. So I can drill up from the particular issue or alert and immediately highlight all the related business services. Basically, I've performed an instantaneous impact analysis for SQL Server 01 and related it to, of course, all the relevant business services. So all these services are dependent on this particular server. If I have to go reboot this in order to fix it, then now I know immediately which line of business owners need to be notified. So this is a real important function in determining workflow for somebody in the operations center. There's another way in which, perhaps as a manager, I might want to assign work or figure out which services to go work on. So the default mechanism for prioritizing this would be to cross-reference priority versus severity, and it shows me a certain number of red business services in the upper right quadrant. But there are other ways to look at this as well. For example, how about looking at revenue? If I look at the revenue per business service and decide to work on maybe the services that bring in the largest revenue to the organization, the picture looks a little bit different. I still have red services in the top quadrant on the right, but one of those services is kind of dropped off to the left, and I wouldn't go work on that first since these others seem to be more important. I can further cross-reference this with the number of users. So if we have the number of users recorded in here, I can now see users and revenue, the highest users and highest revenue business services on the top right. You can see this further drops off another service, another red service, down to the bottom left, leaving me with just those services that are really important or really critical to get fixed up on the top right. Again, this is essentially an impact analysis in terms of prioritizing where you would go work on things first. Now, there's another way in which you might prioritize work as well. Let's say you're looking at a business service with one particular server here. Again, our SQL Server 01, and we'll zoom into here so we can see exactly what it is we're working on. And I can see that SQL Server 01 is in a problem state. We already knew that from the alarm, of course. Let's say that I do need to reboot it, but I hadn't clicked through on the dashboard to see the related business services. There's another way in which we can do some research on just who's affected, and kind of brings up some additional ways of doing this homework in a more detailed fashion. So by clicking into my physical topology screen, this is essentially a what-if analysis screen. What if I have to bring the server down? Who's affected? Well, these 12 business services are the ones that are dependent on this particular SQL server. But this screen goes a step further in that it shows all related software components, all software components that somehow tie together with this particular SQL server. They don't necessarily reside on the same server, but they're all related in some way. More importantly, we can drill up from a particular component here, a particular related component, and we can see, for example, for this IIS server, only 3 of those servers are dependent on this IIS machine. So we get a nice picture of which business services use which of these related components. Now there's another way in which we can look at this as well, and that is by pasting in or searching for a particular server. For example, this server that seems to be having an issue, wouldn't it be great to know just in one big list what are all the software components in this running on this server? You can see they're all hosted on the same machine here. So this machine is actually hosting more than just SQL Server. We've got some integration services running here. It looks like we've got some SharePoint components running. So there's some interesting things running here that we would need to take care of and make sure that none of the business services use those other services as well. So this is just a deeper way of looking at impact analysis, what server's running on the machine, and who needs to be notified.